We've got 7 different stories from 7 different media outlets, you guys. It is time for another episode of the Regan's Newsround. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with another episode of Regan's Newsround, where I cover 7 different news stories from 7 different media outlets in a premiere video. The date and time of this video is the Friday the 13th of September 2024 at around 2:36 p.m. UK time, just for reference on these stories. And the first one I got for you guys is from The Guardian, an exclusive from them, with the headline that England's national parks have been overseen by bloated, mostly white male boards. The exclusive revealed that campaigners called for an overhaul as Guardian's investigation showed nature rarely on the agenda. That's incredibly concerning if this exclusive is found to be true. Now, obviously, I'm sure everyone will agree with us that protecting our nature is one of the most one of the most important things within England, and I'm sure Wales and Scotland, Northern Ireland themselves, or anywhere else for that matter, wherever you are listening to this, your nature reserves and parks and whatnot should be greatly looked after. England's national parks, without a doubt, are very, very special, and we really want to make sure that they are looked after as much as they possibly can. But obviously the exclusive comes across here that there's not really been as well looked after as they may seem here. Now, it definitely strikes definitely a bit of definitely strings odd that we're in 2024 and it's a board that is mostly white male. I would like to know how many females and how many people of others are on that board. Be a question I think could be worth asking, but I'm wondering if the exclusive will give that to us. So let's read a bit more into this, you guys. So the boards that oversee England's national parks are bloated, dominated by men, and are severely lacking diversity, a Guardian analysis has found. The analysis also found that farmers outnumber conservation experts by 2 to 1. The nature is rarely on the agenda at board meetings, and only one national park can account for the ownership of all the land it covers. That's very worrying. Campaigners say a major overhaul of how national parks were governed was fundamental to the recovery of nature in its parks and to serving the public for whom they were set up. England's 10 national parks cover 10% of the country and should be key to addressing the nature and climate crisis. However, the state of nature inside the parks, which are largely private owned, is often worse than outside. The Guardian analysis found that 70% of the 225 members of the park boards were men, but the proportion of women vary from 11% on the board of the Broads National Park to 42% for South Downs. 7 of the 10 parks have no non-white minority ethnic board members, with just 4 of the 225 members, 1.7%. Across England, 18% of the population belong to minority ethnic groups. There are also 30 farmers on the board, twice as many as the number of conservation or ecological experts, and 6 of the conservation experts sit on the board of a single national park. The boards of 3 national parks have no conservation experts, Dartmoor, Northumberland and Yorkshire Dales, but all have at least one farmer. So basically it's fair to say that the farmers do have a great deal of influence in this. And the National Board park members decide the strategic direction of the organisation, and 3/4 are appointed by local councils. The other 1/4 are appointed by the Secretary of State for Environment. That's the problem. With the intention of representing the national interest, the parks were set up for the nation 75 years ago by the post-war Labour government. The number of board members for each park varies between 15 and 13 people, and a total of 225 oversee the use of the combined 54 million annual budget provided by government. By comparison, Natural England, the government's natural environment advisor, has a budget of about 200 million and a board of 15 members. Straight away off the bat, when it says there that the other 1/4 is appointed by the Secretary of State, that means that the Secretary of State can have direct influence, can appoint people of friends and associates that could have direct influence on this. Now, I'm pretty sure, people could correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure there are barriers that protect it to a certain extent, that there has to be members of certain points on the board. However, I don't like that they have that power. At least the difference is obviously with National Trust. A lot of it is down to simply the votes from within, but they don't seem to have that kind of. They don't have seen that kind of way of managing things, shall we say? It doesn't really comes right to me. It definitely doesn't seem to be run well up, and especially when the fact that the majority of it is white male. Why? I think that's a great question as well. Dr. Rose O'Neill, the chief executive of the Campaign for National Parks, said an overhaul of the boards was fundamental to ensure that nature could recover. The boards must represent the public they serve, she said. They must be smaller and have the expertise needed. Yeah. Why do they have 200? Yeah. Why do they need 225? Doesn't sound right to me. The state of nature in national parks is an embarrassment in many ways on the world stage, she said. The UK only has about half of its biodiversity left, putting it in the bottom 10% of the world countries. The nature campaigner and author, Guy Schroespool, also urged board reform. National parks are not just local parks. For local people. Jane Butler, the executive director of National Park England, which represents all the parks, said, "Locally appointed members, who we effectively have no control over, are probably unsurprisingly going to represent the demographic of the area which they come from. You get many brilliant people who come as Secretary of State appointees, but there is a lot of work needs to be done on how we recruit different people into those public appointments." On diversity, the Garson received response from 8 of the 10 national park authorities. Several said they wanted greater diversity on their boards, but emphasised they did not control the appointments, and only one said they monitor board diversity for gender and disability. So it's all a case of because of the way the appointments are made is unfair. So one national park board, Yorkshire Dales, voted to reduce its size from 25 to 60 in 2020 in what a spokesperson called Turkey's voting for Christmas. But local government reorganisation meant the plan was not implemented. Another park, South Downs, said we previously used an external agency to help put forward a strong field of diverse candidates. Unfortunately, none of these candidates were chosen by the Secretary of State. South Downs has co-opted 2 members of the board to increase diversity, but they cannot vote. What kind of system is this? Maroon Paradis, founder of We Go Outside Too, which works to help black community members in the West Midlands engage with nature, said representation is crucial in national parks. It's imperative to include those who embrace diversity in outdoor space. The Guardian made a freedom of information request to all park authorities, but only one, North York Motors, was able to detail the ownership of 100% of the park. 9 were able to state the ownership of very little of their land, and 1, Dartmoor, provided no data at all. The Guardian also analysed the agenda of all 3 full authority meetings from all 10 of England's national parks, and agenda items specifically related to nature appearing in only 7 of the 30 meetings, and 4 park boards that had no nature-related agenda items at all. Yeah, what? That doesn't make. Why no nature-related agenda? O'Neill said polling has showed the public wanted nature-rich and wild their national parks, but some of the boards seem to be out of step with this. A very small amount of their time and resources is given to nature recovery. Ministers told the boards they were bloated, poor and deeply unrepresentative in the 2019 review. However, no action was taken by the Conservative government. What a surprise. Julian Governor, the author of the review, said the last government only paid lip service to our review. So this is a test for the new government. Will it provide the leadership and resources for protected landscapes to do far more for nature and people? Spokesperson for the Department of Environment and Food and Rural Affairs, Defra, has said we will consider improving how to protect landscapes are governed so they can better contribute to this effort. We want to ensure that legacy that will be left for generations to come, including everyone. So a very interesting piece here from the Guardian, showing that those who overall overwatch our national parks, and they're not a diverse group in any way, shape, or form. But I think the system that they have, in the way they appoint people, without a shadow of a doubt, is broken. They need to change that system. They need to have a system similar to what National Trust has, where people are voted on by its members, and it's a very good system they have. And it's very powerful because it can keep people who don't really who are not really speaking on the agenda or know what's best for national parks. Those who kind of are embedded with it, who are long-term, they have more of a say on things, I would say. But yeah, the system that they have is not working based on the exclusive piece that they have here, the Guardian. But yeah, a mostly male whiteboard, yeah, that needs to change. That needs to change without a shadow of a doubt. The sooner something is done, the better, I would say. But obviously, understandably so, it is not a priority of the government, I think it's fair to say. But I do think DEFRA should have a look at it if they can make time for it, and hopefully deal with it accordingly is the best thing I could say on that. Next story I've got for you guys is from Sky News. This one is about assisting dying should be allowed in England, according to Citizens Jury. The top two reasons the panel were concerned about a law change were it could be used for the wrong reasons if safeguarding is not in place, and that it could be misinterpreted or misused. So I've talked about assisting dying before, guys. So before I read into it, I'm someone who is in favour of assisting dying should be allowed. I do think, in my opinion, that there should be a lot of hoops that people have to jump through in order to participate in assisting dying. It should be very, very difficult for someone to do so. I completely and fully understand that the risks that are involved with having to assist in dying allowed in England because of the possibility of people taking advantage of it. There is that possibility as well, which is why personally, if we were to implement assist in dying law, it must be done with with very strong safeguards, and make it and it does need to be made very difficult for people in order to do it. There need to be a great deal of certain requirements and whatnot in order for it to be done. But I do think assisting dying should be allowed, as what the Citizens Jury has said here. Because I just personally don't. I hate this fact that people who want to die and choose and want to make that conscious decision to be able to die have to go to Switzerland to do it, rather than do it in their own home country, especially when it's their choice to do so. It's not right that they don't get to make that choice for themselves. I understand how sensitive this is. I really, really do, and I'm perfectly well aware of the counter arguments for not having assisting dying as well. So assisting dying should be legalised in England according to a panel made up of members of the public. The so-called Citizens Jury, a random selected group brought together to discuss the topics by the Nutfield Council on Bioethics, the NCOB, deliberated for 8 weeks. It concluded that if a person has a terminal illness and capacity to make their own decisions about an assisted death, they should be able to legally access both physically assisting suicide, where healthcare professionals prescribe lethal drugs to eligible parents to take themselves, and voluntary euthanasia, where healthcare professionals administer lethal drugs to patients with the intention of ending their life. This is a significant finding that will be valuable for policymakers who are considering whether and how to take forward legislation change, said the Professor Anne Kerr, chair of the Nutfield Council on the Bioethics Assisting Dying Advisory Board. I like this, that they literally took a random selected group and deliberated for this for 8 weeks. This was not something that even though, yes, it's not the most expert people, but taking a random selection group of people and put them in a room to get them to agree on this, and to get everyone on board. It's not an easy thing to get everyone on board on it, because we're talking about, like I said, a subject that is very, very sensitive, and some more deeply sensitive to others than what's not. To have them all agree that this is something that tells you a lot. And I do think the majority of the public are on board with assisting dying. 28 members of the public made up the jury, participating in an 8-week process designed to explore the complexity of assisting dying. They heard from a range of experts and considered evidence before voting on whether the law should be changed to allow assisted death. This will help. Yeah, like it said there, this will help politicians make a much better decision on what to do with this. I do like that this was conducted. 20 members either strongly agreed or tended to agree with the law that should change to permit assisting dying in England, while 7 said they either strongly disagreed or tended to disagree with the law change, and 1 person was undecided. Okay, so there was There was some disagreements with it, and one person could not make their mind up on it. That's good. Assisted dying is legal in several countries, including Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and Switzerland, and remains illegal in the UK. Encouraging or assisting a suicide in England and Wales can lead up to criminal prosecution and up to 14 years in prison. The top 2 reasons for supporting a change in the law were to stop pain and a belief in an individual having to choose to end their own life legally. The top 2 reasons against a change in the law were that it could be used for the wrong reasons if safeguarding was not in place, and that it could be misinterpreted or misused, causing challenges for both society and the legal system. Yeah, for me, the key is the safeguarding. The key has to be the safeguarding in place to ensure that this is not abused. And it can be abused if we don't have the right laws in place to protect people from taking advantage of others in this. Professor Kathleen Sleeman, Lang Chair of the Parallel Care at King's College London Ward, safeguarding is in this issue is not straightforward. Yeah, I would imagine it's not straightforward anyway. And I really do hope that they've taken a lot in from how the systems work in the other countries that have it in there. They've looked at Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and Switzerland. I hope they've looked at all those countries that have assisted dying and how they go about managing that, and how many cases where they have people taking their life legally but finding out that it's not as well. I do think that would be an interesting evidence to share as well when it comes to making the policy decision on that. I think that would be really, really important. And Nuffield Council jurors agreed that vulnerable people should not be pressured into choosing assisted death, she told Sky News. 100%. 100%. In my opinion, assisted dying should only be in a case where someone is in so much pain or in so much agony, they're at a point where they want to end their life, that it should be a case of it. It's hard to know whether somebody's being pressured into it or not, because the truth is you don't know what those conversations are like between the person who's choosing it in their life and the discussions that they have privately with their families. So that can be a very difficult thing to know, because it's entirely possible that some people pressure someone into assisting dying where the costs for looking after them are so expensive. It's possible. I'm just making an example here, that somebody looking after somebody that they, whether they care or don't care about, it could be somebody that the cost of looking after them is very expensive. They're already near the end of their life, shall we say, and depends what their condition is as well, like how frail and all these kind of things. It could be the case of that people are pressuring them because they have a big amount of pension or savings saved up that they're going to pass on to loved ones and whatnot. That could be another reason why as well. So that could be another, that's as well as why it may not be straightforward as well. It could be the case, yeah, and like I said, it could be down to the cost of actually looking after that person as well. So there are lots of complexities around this. So it's very hard to get a straight answer as to whether, yeah, this is totally fine, this is something they definitely want. But do they definitely want it? Professor Seaman pointed out in this week's Darcy Review and a recent King College London Marie Curie Time to Care report, which highlights the precarious state of the NHS service and inadequacies in particularly in end-of-life care, with difficulty accessing service and support for dying people all too common. Yeah, the NHS is in, we've talked so many times, the NHS is not in a state yet to deal with this right now. Not saying that it shouldn't be something that it shouldn't add, but yeah, the NHS is not in a great situation right now. The big question is how to ensure this in a context where health and care service for dying people are frequently inadequate, Professor Sleeman has said. Nearly all jury members felt that more funding should be put towards improving NHS palliative care. If I mispronounced the word, I do apologise. Yeah, so I'm glad that all the jury members felt that way. It's very interesting that they had this on the system dying, and I think this was really, really fascinating. You know, I'm actually someone who believes in assisting dying, but I also like I said many times, there are great risks to it too. There are many difficulties surrounding it, without a shadow of a doubt. And understandably, it can go wrong. It could be a case that my fear, one of my biggest fears, is if it becomes legal in England. One of my biggest fears is the possibility that that somebody could be given the wrong injection by a doctor or a nurse, and it could end up killing them. Now, I'm not saying that that will happen, but what I mean is that if somebody doesn't give it to the right person who is supposed to be ending their life, and they end up giving it to someone who doesn't, it's very unlikely, but it can happen. And I think right now with the situation in the NHS, while I do approve of assisting dying, and it should be done with the greatest of safeguards in place, part of me also is fully aware that I just don't think the NHS could cope with it right now. Perhaps, maybe, I know nobody will like what I'm about to say, but perhaps maybe leave it in the hands of the private sector for now. But then if you do, then that means that people have to pay a lot of money to do it, and people would have to pay a fortune just to go to Switzerland or another country just to do it. And it's just like, there is no straight answer to this one, guys. There is no straight answer to it, that is for sure. But yeah, I'm sure this will not be the last time we talk about assisting dying. That is for sure, guys. The next one I have for you guys is a High Court case regarding the coal mine plant. So this is from the BBC. Coal mine plant has been squashed by the High Court. The plans to build the UK's first deep coal mine in more than 30 years has been quashed. This is a great, for me, this is a great victory, and I'm very happy about this decision by the High Court. This is something that the Conservatives wanted to push through. So this was about a coal mine in Cumbria that got approved by the Conservative government. However, I'm pretty sure we'll read it in the piece here from the BBC. Excuse me. Is that, did they go through all the necessary checks and arrangements? Did the Conservative government at the time when they approved it, did they make sure all safeguards and all checks were checked to make sure that this was going to be perfectly okay and as safe as possible? Did they also check in coinciding with our climate pledges and how it would affect our climate change commitments as well? And I'm going to go around a limb and say they probably didn't. And because they didn't, which is why we're in this situation where the coal mine is not going to go ahead. Now, one of the arguments for having this coal mine was to obviously goes towards British steel and to help our British steel industry. But I just don't think it's worth I just don't think it's worth it. I just don't think that the need for this coal mine, and people have argued that you have to bring it in abroad, and I'm just like mate, we're not going back. We're not going back to those days, you know. It's not something Cumbria even wanted, you know, and we have to move forward with green energy. It's something that we have to go forward with, guys. So I am in favour of this decision by the High Court. So at the High Court, Judge Justine Holgate said environmental assumptions underpinning the development at Whitehaven in Cumbria were legally flawed. So the proposal by West Cumbria Mining, that WCM, had received the go-ahead from the previous government, Conservative government, in December 2022. Victoria Marson from Friends of the Earth said campaigners had won a massive victory. WCM said it would consider the implementations of the judgment before commenting further. Legal challenges to the decision to approve the mine were submitted by Friends of the Earth and South Lake Actions on Climate Change, that's SLACC. They claim permission for the mine did not take into consideration the environmental impact of burning the coal extracted. Rather, it focused only on running the facility. Lawyers for the WMC said there had been repeated mischaracterization of the plans and that the redevelopment would have been broadly neutral effect on the global release of greenhouse gas. In his judgment, Mr. Justice Holgate said, the assumptions that the proposed mine would not produce a net increase in greenhouse gas emissions or would be a net zero is legally flawed. He's not wrong. He's not wrong whatsoever. Especially from a legal time, yeah. No time for a coal mine. That's a very good line. Duncan Pollard, a trustee of the SLACC, said the ruling was a huge relief, adding, "We sincerely hope that any re-examination of the coal mine proposal considers all relevant issues and this ill-conceived idea is permanently shelved. Central and local government needs to concentrate and secure on sustainable jobs for West Cumbria." Professor in Energy and Climate Governance at the University of Lancaster, Rebecca Willis, said she hoped the decision would set an example to other countries to show how you can get your national law in line with the climate science. She said, "Surely the writing's on the wall. Surely we've realised through today's judgment that there's no way you can open a new coal mine while keeping climate targets." You would think so, but for example, like a prime example of a country that's really hard to let go of their industry is Poland. Poland relies heavily on their coal mining industry. They are very, very reliant on the industry there. So asking them to stop doing what they're doing would fundamentally harm their economy significantly. So you have to provide an alternative for a country like that, for instance, if you want to get them off coal mine. But I'm sure that the EU and governments are looking at ways to do it, because they have, and I'm sure they have strong unions as well there. Meanwhile, Neil Tory, a senior lawyer at Friends of the Earth, said the mine should never have been given permission in the first place. The case against it is overwhelming. It would have had huge climate impacts. Its coal isn't needed and it harms the UK's international reputation on climate. Mr. Tory claims Friday's ruling could have international ramifications, and there are cases abroad where challenges are being made against fossil fuel projects on a very similar basis. This was echoed by Maggie Madsen from SLACC, who said this groundbreaking judgment could advance the global phase out of fossil fuels. It is that big. Mr. Justice Hollingate have forensically destroyed their net zero climate neutral coal mine claims. So apparently this was the idea of where it would be. This is what it would be like, how it would look. Yeah. At a previous hearing in July, the newly elected Labour government decided not to defend the decision of its predecessors to grant permission of the project, citing an error in law. But WCM found its case, arguing it could build a unique net zero mine. The court heard the mine would extract what is known as metateliol coal, which is used in steel making. Yeah, this is what it was about. It's about the steel making. In written submissions, Paul Brown, KC Friends of the Earth, argued there was no significant need for the coal in the UK, given statements from British Steel and Tata over their moves to electric arc furnaces. Yeah, that's another argument as well. Friday's High Court judgment said a recent decision regarding the Horse Hill oil well in Surrey laid at the heart of these proceedings. In June, the Supreme Court ruled granted permission for that project had been unlawful because local authorities should have been considered the emissions from burning the oil, not just the impact of constructing the well. Yes, you have to take into account the people from the areas as well. You can't just do it without talking to them. It just makes logical sense. Supporters of the Whitehaven mine have additionally argued it would bring economic and security benefits. Reacting to the High Court judgment, former Conservative MP for Workington, Mark Jenkinson, said the project would have created well-paid jobs and huge opportunity for local supply chain. I don't think, I'm going to just put this out there. I 100% agree that if they went ahead with this coal mine, it would create jobs and opportunities for people. I absolutely agree with that. The problem is it goes against everything that we're supposed to be doing, and that's going towards green energy. This coal mine. That's the whole thing. That's the point of this. Of course, we want new projects that would, we would love new projects that private industries and whatnot bring in to bring new jobs and opportunities for people in areas. But not when it comes to harming our planet. In a social media post, he claimed, if we don't mine coking the coal here, which is required for our steel industry, among others for the seeable future, then we import it from countries like Russia. We will not be importing it from countries like Russia. But barristers for Friends of the Earth told the court there is no significant need for coal in the UK. Exactly. Tesla Khan from the environmental group Uplift, which is taking part in the legal challenge against the previous government's granting for new North Sea oil and gas licenses, calls such claims poorly evidenced. She said the court has made it clear that the favourite line of fossil fuel companies, that if we don't produce fossil fuels here, it would simply be produced elsewhere, doesn't wash. yeah, so this is a similar argument that they will be making with regards to the North Sea oil and gas licenses as well. Is that while they want more of them as well, and the arguments, obviously the arguments that for myself and others would be like, it's producing more CO2 emissions, really bad the environment. We don't want more of that stuff. The counter argument will be, well, we're just going to be getting it from elsewhere, so we might as well drill. Is basically what they're saying, and it's just like, well, no, we're moving away from oil and gas really. But Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, has said that while they are transitioning to green energy, they're still going to be relying on oil and gas. He has stated that, so that is a very important point to make as well. So, part of me does see the government. See, the coal mine thing is different to the oil and gas because we do rely on oil and gas at the moment. So I can see the government pushing through with the North Sea oil project, even though I don't agree with it, with the means of obviously continuing. But the problem is that originally, as my understanding was, that oil and gas wasn't even going to go into the UK economy, and it was simply just going to go onto the global market. So what's the purpose of it? If it was just going to go on the global market and not benefit the UK economy at all. So that was originally what I believed it was the understanding from the Conservative government at the time. Well, maybe something has changed since then, but if someone has, please let me know in the comments. But as far as I'm concerned, but yeah, that's obviously another topic for another day. But as far as the coal mine's concerned, good riddance to it. We don't need it. Even if it was going to produce zero emissions and create jobs and prosperity, it's still not worth it in the end, guys. Excuse me. It still would not be worth it in the end at all. At least in my opinion, anyway. So, guys, just before I go to the next topic, if you haven't already and you're finding the news cycles that I'm bringing to you guys here on Regan's Newsround informative and helpful to you, please hit the like button. It would be greatly appreciated. If you can, share this across social media so other people are notified of this video. And if you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing because it really does help support the channel. Make sure you leave your comments and feedback on this as well. It would be greatly appreciated if you could do any of those things. It really does help support the channel. So thank you to everyone who has done so. It's greatly appreciated. The next one I've got for you guys is an exclusive from iNews. This one here is from them. Murdoch meets Jenrick and Badenoch as Tory leadership rivals bid for approval. So the front-runner, Robert Jenrick, campaign gets a boost as he's granted his first significant face-to-face with the media Mongol. So they've gone to have their job interviews with Rupert Murdoch to decide and put their cases forward to the boss of the real Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Because at the end of the day, he's the one who decides everything, isn't he? Because he's the one who controls everything. Isn't it? Let's be serious here. He does have the most influence pretty much of everyone. There's a reason why Keir Starmer had many meetings with Rupert Murdoch as well. Let's not forget that. So I'm sure that both of them... So it's pretty much going to be, from the sounds of it, that these two got to have this meeting. I'm just going to go on a limb, and now, whatever happens at the Tory conference, it should be down to these two. It should be down to these two in the final two. I think the rest have become null and void, just on the fact that they've had meetings with Rupert Murdoch, pretty much. As for who I want, I think I probably would go with Robert Jenrick rather than again Kemi, but I just don't think either one of them are really somebody that are going to appeal to the British public. They may appeal to the Conservative members, they may appeal to their colleagues, but can they appeal to the UK? Sorry, as a whole? No, I just can't see it. But maybe they will change, and maybe Robert Jenrick will be good at Prime Minister's questions. Maybe I don't think he will, but certainly Rupert Murdoch is keen on making his choice on this. That's for sure. So Conservative leadership frontrunner Robert Jenrick's campaign has enjoyed a boost after he was invited to meet Rupert Murdoch when the media tycoon was in London to oversee a takeover deal the eye can reveal. So Jenrick, who currently enjoys the most support among Conservative MPs, met the media tycoon last Thursday last week for around 45 minutes, according to the industry sources. He also saw the editors of The Times and The Sun's and their Sunday sister titles. While the telly shows the former immigration minister is now being taken seriously by the titles. It also demonstrates how Murdoch 93 is unwilling to scale back his influence on British politics, even after his son Looms has taken over his empire. Kemi Badenoch, who is jointly with Jenrick for support from Tory colleagues, securing a meeting for the following days, the 5th of September. Like her rival, she visited a 17-storey glass news building opposite London Bridge Station for an audience with the Mongol for around 45 minutes. Murdoch could not find time to see Tom Tugendhat and James Cleverly and the other two Conservative candidates in the leadership race. Yeah, maybe it's because he's not interested in them. Just putting that out there as a possibility. Jenrick 42 has been on a self-confessed journey from cuddly centralist to lean right-winger. He's battling Badenoch for the approval of the party's MPs and membership. Both are naturally aligned with Murdoch's robust conservatism and will be hoping for a favourable coverage, if not explicit endorsement. The Sun has been talking up Badenoch since January and described her as new Mrs. Thatcher. Let me just be sick. Blech. The Shadow Housing Secretary, who has not shied away from picking fights with journalists, favours meeting newspapers' proprietors and editors. Straight-talking Badenoch 44 is understood to have met Murdoch on several occasions over the past few years, and the pair are said to have a friendly relationship. A spokesperson for Jenrick declined to comment. A spokesperson for Badenoch, who also declined to confirm the meetings. Ooh, so they've not confirmed these meetings have happened. Murdoch is known for courting close connections with senior politicians from around the world, with one source said the stars are aligned to allow space in his diary while in London to meet the two Tories, and at a clear point in the Tory leadership contest. Tory MPs have concluded the first round of knockouts, leaving 4 contenders in their case for the annual conference at the end of the month. Although Jenrick topped the ballot of Conservative MPs with 33 votes, Badenoch was a close second with 28. MPs will vote again on the 9th and 10th of October until 2 candidates remain. There is no way of predicting how supporters of eliminating candidates will reallocate their votes, making it impossible to guess which the two will be presented as their final choices for the party membership. Even so, the meeting with Murdoch should be seen as a fillip for Jenrick because it was the first time the MP had a significant face-to-face with the Mongol, while Cleverly and Badenoch, the then cabinet ministers, have received invitations from tycoons lavish midsummer party at St James's Park in 2023. Jenrick, a junior minister at the time, was not seen at the Glitzy Bash. The annual Jabroni is seen as a fixture of London's social calendar, which celebrate celebrities and business people mingling with politicians. Guests sip Pot Rogers champagne and admire the lavish floristry while awaiting their allocated 5-minute slot to pay homage to their host. No party was held this year as Murdoch got married and the UK held the election campaign. Tugendhat, the former security minister, and Cleverly, the former home secretary, are seen as more centrist contenders. Recently, they have also been in for meetings with various editors in the UK News UK stables, but did not see Murdoch while he was in town last week. A spokesperson for News UK declined to comment. Again, nobody is confirming or denying that this didn't happen. The Australian Mangate was in the capital with his eldest son, 53, to attempt the purchase of Rightmove, Britain's largest property listing company. REA Group, controlled by Murdoch's News Corp, and had his initial cash and shares offerings rejected by the estate agency as too low. In his first example of efforts from the Murdoch family to move away from its traditional media business and its proprietary, with its hands over the reins to its heir. The group is in part diversifying as newspapers' sales fall in the race against online content and more general trend towards news avoidance. Looms, who is currently at the centre of a succession battle style to wrest control of the company from his sibling, did not attend the political meetings in London with his father. However, he personally directed the son's endorsement of Labour over the summer. The family is facing a pivotal moment as the internal politics and future control of the media empire play out in the court in the US state of Nevada this coming week. With Murdoch is attempting to secure Looms' future by control by changing the terms of the family trust that would have also given his younger brother James, sister Elizabeth and half-sister Bridget a say on how sprawling businesses run. The change would mean Looms would have sole control of the family stake in publishing house HarperCollins alongside the Sun and the Times in the UK, in the US, the Empire, including Fox News, the Wall Street Journal, and the New York Post. Elsewhere, it boasts broadsheets the Australian and other assets. The younger sibling are pushing against the proposed changes, insisting that all 4 continue to receive equal voting share. Murdoch Sr. is seeking to ensure the family's legal battle will take place away from the public eye in Reno, Nevada. Hearing starts on Monday being conducted by high-profile lawyers representing different family members. The father had hired a former US Attorney General William Barr to help him rewrite the trust, alongside Adam Straley, a lawyer who's worked on the estate case of Michael Jackson and Britney Spears. Business litigator Gary A. Boston is representing the three junior Murdochs. The American press has so far been unsuccessful in its attempts to get a judge at the Washoe County Courthouse to release documents relating to the case. 5 times married Rupert is said to favoured son Lutchkin's conservative values, seeing them as a key to maintaining the value and integrity of the right-leaning media company. That after his younger sibling questioned whether the brands in his empire sit well together and took on a more moderate political stance. Once elected, the next Conservative leader will be hoping they can get the Murdoch titles back on side as quickly as possible, although the son, supporting Labour shortly ahead of the general election, is happy to criticise Keir Starmer when he believes he is not acting in the best interest of its readers, such as withdrawing the winter fuel payments for all but the very poorest pensioners. The Sunday Times has endorsed Labour for the first time in more than 20 years, arguing that the Tories had forfeited the right to govern. Later this month, the Conservative conference in Birmingham, the 4 candidates will have plenty of opportunity to make their pitches to the party's 100,000 strong membership. And on Sunday, the 29th of September, they will answer questions from party members. And on Monday and Tuesday, the candidates will face more question sessions before each delivering a 20-minute speech on the Wednesday. The order was drawn by putting the numbers 1 to 4 envelopes in central office and drawing lots. Tugendhat will go first, Cleverly second, Jenrick third, and Badenoch last. While Sunak is still nominally leader of the opposition, the candidates have been asked to fulfil some of his roles as party leader already, such as grip and grin photo opportunities at business events and fringe parties. Despite the meeting with Murdoch, Kenrick is better known for his links to another London newspaper proprietor. In 2020, as community secretary, he overruled an East London council, and the government is planning to inspectorate to approve a £1 billion development of flats in the former newspaper's Mardrake. Richard Desmond, it later emerged he had sat next to Desmond at the Tory party fundraising event, where the former Express owner showed him a PR video of the 44-storey building. 2 weeks after the planning decision, Desmond gave the Conservatives £12,000. Then the government denied any wrongdoing. So a lot there, obviously, about Murdoch's looking to expand their empire and other things there from this piece of them. But main topic I wanted to stick on obviously was Murdoch meeting Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick. It may be something, it may not be something, but I think it's more of the fact that time was made to meet those two and not time to meet the other two does speak a lot of volumes. That doesn't. I think it does mean it will be down to the. Excuse me. I do think it will be down to those two when it comes to after the conference, especially with the influence that Rupert Murdoch has. Yes, he is very old now, but he still clearly he has influence around the world, and that has not changed. The guy had meetings. He still has influence, and I don't know out of the two who I think it is. I know some people where I have this opinion that it's like, who cares who the leadership is going to be, sort of thing. Problem is, it matters because you want somebody strong who's going to hold the government to account. I will say, obviously, on last Prime Minister questions, Sunak at times really did look very good at holding Keir Starmer to the fire. And I just don't want. I would actually, preferably, if I wanted someone if I had to choose between Jenrick and Badenoch to hold Keir Starmer to the fire when it comes to Prime Minister questions, I probably would pick Robert Jenrick. I actually think he'd be a lot better because I see Kemi as just a bit more out of control with her language, and I think Jenrick would be a bit more professional, although still all over the place. But like any of these Conservatives, they're all terrible in their own way, shape or form. I think he would be a little bit more moderate. But this is the same guy that also painted over a mural as well. I haven't forgotten that, guys, don't you worry. So I think that's an important point to add as well. So guys, what we do, as I've covered 4 out of 7 stories so far here on Regan's Newsround, what I'd like to do, obviously, because we normally go an hour or so more. So take a little break in between just to recover my voice a little bit. So I've got a funny video for you guys to kind of, shall we say, break the ice from all the negative news. And I hope you guys enjoyed this funny video that I've got here from you. This is from the YouTuber Matt Green Comedy. So do check out the YouTube channel. The link for it is in the description. But it's entitled of Why Are British People Obsessed with US Politics? Hope you guys enjoy this one.
As Kamala Harris and Donald Trump faced off in a crucial presidential debate in Philadelphia, British people interested in politics sighed and said, at least we still know who the baddies are in this one. Our tough choices, grim news, and at least we don't have him correspondent Jonathan Goodenough has more. Yes, that's right. As the reality of Labour being in government sets in, centre-leftish people across the UK have put out a statement saying that they've decided to focus on American politics for a bit. Oh look, there's Taylor Swift with a cat. Have they completely given up on British politics? Not quite, but the arguments over the winter fuel payments have certainly left many people facing tough decisions. Such as? Well, do they accept that cutting this benefit is one way of clawing back some money from richer pensioners to help fill a financial hole left by the previous government? And do they accept that the rising the state pension will go some way to mitigate the effects for poorer people? Or do they shrug their shoulders, say they're waiting to see what happens in the budget, and add that nobody said it would be easy, right? Or do they throw their hands up in the air, agree that Labour are just as bad as the Conservatives, and change hashtag Tories out to hashtag Starmer out? All tough decisions. Although perhaps not quite as tough as a pensioner deciding whether or not to put the heating on in a cold snap. Indeed. So you can see why for many people, they've decided to forego those decisions and instead focus on what's happening in the States. It's just easier. Why? One word. Donald Trump. He's just so obviously loathsome that they can comfortably cheer for the other side. So obviously loathsome that the race is still neck and neck. Yes, that's also an advantage. They can roll their eyes about those crazy Americans and the dangers of the Electoral College to their heart's content, whilst not having to think about things like the royal prerogative or the House of Lords. Did they watch the full debate live? Unlikely, as it was on well after bedtime for all but the most committed fan of Pod Save America, but they will have chuckled at the social media clips afterwards, especially the one about immigrants eating dogs. And will the debate make much of an impact? Well, Kamala Harris clearly had a better night, as evidenced by the fact that Trump has said he will not debate her again. But will it have an effect on the polls? Who knows? After all, we are talking about those crazy Americans. So what will these British people do after November? Well, then there's bound to be an election in France featuring the far right, and it's also easy to know who the baddies are in that one. Next up, as the government introduces a bill to end no-fault evictions, we speak to a Tory MP and landlord who says that he considers voting Labour to be a big fault.
A big fault. I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was a great one from Matt Green. Some of you may have already heard it already, but I thought it was a great one there. Like I said, YouTuber Matt Green Comedy. Do check out the links below, and do check out whenever he's on tour as well, and whenever he goes on tour as well in the UK. Definitely worth checking out if you get an opportunity to do so. So switching gears, guys. This next one I've got for you guys. It's a very short one here. This one here is from the Independent. The headline is Labour's £22 billion black hole glooms unnecessary and unhelpful, the former Bank of England chief economist warns. So Chancellor's warnings hampers post-election sense of refresh, said Andy Houghton. So before I read into this, obviously, now, like I said, I'm not an economist. I've said this before, and obviously, the former Bank of England chief is saying that the doom and gloom that Labour are showing people is not helping optimism. It's not I would say it's not helping people's perspective on this Labour government. Excuse me. It's not helping people's perspective on this Labour government because it paints this picture of everything is all doom and gloom, everything is all bad. And when is the good times going to come? When are they going to come? And the Conservatives were always saying you have to wait for the good times to come. And now you have a Labour government saying you're going to have to wait for the good times to come. That kind of perception people don't like. People want things here and now, and that's not helpful. A lot of people will not fully understand the whole idea of where this £22 billion black hole as well. It gives the impression, and it's a furtherly argument or impression, that there's going to be austerity coming within the budget. Now, I don't know that, and as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm aware, I don't think we're going to be having an austerity budget from Labour. Now, I could be wrong, and I've said this before, I could be wrong. When that budget does come out, it's going to be very interesting to watch, that is for sure. But I think I do think it will be of great interest without a shadow of a doubt, guys. So let's read what they've had to say here. So the Chancellor Rachel Reeves' gloomy warnings of a £22 billion black hole in the public finances were unnecessary and probably economically unhelpful, a former chief economist at the Bank of England has warned. Labour's frontbenchers have issued a series of warnings about the financial mess that they inherited from the Conservative predecessors upon winning the July election, widely interpreted as paving the way for tax rises and tight public spending decisions in the upcoming budget. But Andy Haley, who served as the Fred Needle Street chief economist and sat on the bank's 9 members interest rate setting body until 2021, was critical of Ms. Reeves' July statement in which she warned of the black hole and vowed to end winter fuel payments for millions of pensioners. It's one thing to reveal a black hole if that's what it was, but just leaving it to sit there for 3 months, I think it was a bad idea, he told Sky News, adding, I think it would have been much better to say nothing until you provide solutions to fill in the black hole as well as revealing it. As it was, that's generating a fear and forebody and uncertainty among consumers, among business, among investors in UK PLC, which is unfortunate because just after the election there was a sense of refresh, of renewals and confidence about the UK both domestically and internationally, and then just set it back on its heels a bit, which I felt was unnecessary. Along with the parallel measures which were taken, I think it had aroused some concerns about what might happen next. Mr. Haley, who made global headlines in 2012 when he said that occupied protesters were right to criticise the global financial system, warned against a return to austerity under Labour. That's a path I think we cannot afford to go down if we have to fix the NHS problems and the well-known. Rather too long for other areas where they have chronically underinvested as a country for too long. Then Mr. Hayder was now Chief Executive of the Royal Society of Arts. They warned that Sir Keir Starmer should tread carefully when it came to wealth taxes and to raise money at a time when ministers will need to do a lot of heavy lifting from the private sector to drive growth. Like I said, I'm not an economics, but this is what Mr. Hayes said, and I do agree with a lot of what he said there. I think in particular, what he was saying there about the £22 billion black hole, about perhaps if she had waited till the budget, perhaps not revealing that doom and gloom, maybe that would have been helpful. But then another part of it would have been also, and I think this is another argument, a counter argument would have been the case of, why are Labour not doing things? What's going on? I think there have been more questions about Labour. Like, you're not doing anything. You're not revealing anything. What's going on? They'd be a lot quieter about a lot of things as well, which I don't think would have helped people, not knowing what Labour government is doing. And it's all a case of everything will all be revealed in the budget. And that's, while obviously there are a lot of things we're still waiting for to be revealed at the budget, things would have been even more discreet about what Labour would be doing if she hadn't revealed it. So I think Labour would have been damned if they do, damned if they don't, if they hadn't told us about the so-called £22 billion black hole. But he's far more knowledgeable in this area than I am, that is for sure, guys. But you can leave your thoughts about that down in the comments below, what you guys think about that one. This next story is more of a fun one, guys, rather than I wouldn't take this next story in any seriousness or not. But I wanted to share it just to have a little bit of fun with you guys before we go to our final story after. This one is from the Telegraph. Larry the Downing Street cat is a little shit, says the Scottish Secretary. Scotland doesn't like Larry the cat, apparently. No, I'm kidding, by the way. Ian Murray describes the famous feline as the most miserable animal you have ever met in your life. Do you know why I think it is? Because this sad feline has had to endure putting up with 14 years of Conservatives coming into that house, causing nothing but mess all over his home, all over his stuff. Every time he marks his territory, these Conservatives cleaning up the mess. And every time he touched them, Sir Larry felt sick from them as well. No wonder Sir Larry's been given a face like that, guys. Don't blame Sir Larry whatsoever. Sir Larry the cat is a little because it refused to let the new cabinet have their photograph taken with it, the Scottish Secretary had said. Ian Murray said Sir Keir Starmer's top team were more excited about meeting Downing Street's famous feline resident than the Prime Minister. How dare they? So, not interested in you, Prime Minister. Where is Sir Larry? I need to speak to Sir Larry the cat. Mr. Murray said Larry refused to play along when they tried to photograph themselves with it, describing it as a little. He told the CBI Scotland annual dinner in Glasgow that Larry was the most miserable cat you have ever met in your life, and joked that the last decade of Tory prime ministers were responsible. Yep, no, that's not a joke. I absolutely agree that that the last decades of Conservative prime ministers are responsible for Larry the cat being miserable. I absolutely agree with that. Larry's biography on the Cabinet Office website said it has captured the hearts of the great British public. Its official title is Chief Mouser to the Cabinet Office, and a recent poll show it's significantly more popular than Sir Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak, the former Prime Minister. Well, yeah, because he doesn't spew misinformation. He doesn't say things that will upset the general public. He gets on with his job, which is a very important one. He just gets business done. That's why he's so appealing. The tabby and white cat arrived from Battersea Dogs and Cats home in February 2011. Has been one of the few consistents at number 10 ever since. Sir Keir's landslide general election win in July means Larry has now served more occupants of Downing Street than any of his predecessors. The 17-year-old cat has been in the role during the premiership of Lord Cameron, Baroness May. Yeah, Theresa May was made a Lord. Boris Johnson, Liz Truss and Mr Sunak. However, it has some competition as Sir Keir Starmer's brought a Siberian kitten for his children, and the Starmer family's rescue cat named Jojo also moved with the family to number 10. Yes, there's quite a few animals now have moved in with Sir Larry. I do like that picture there. He's just like, yeah, I'm not interested in you guys. Reflecting on the general election result, Mr. Murray told the assembled business leaders on Thursday night that we were initially like kids in a sweet shop, because the first thing we all did, we had the election, we had overnight counts. The 37 Scottish Labour MPs got their photographs taken in Glasgow. We darted to the airport, we got to London and made to London in time. Downing Street rang. All of us who pretty much knew inevitably that the cabinet was going to be a shadow cabinet, was, with a few exceptions, walked to Downing Street really excited, and all we wanted to do is not to get to chat with the Prime Minister to be appointed, but to try and get a picture of Larry the cat. And without putting too fine of a point on it, Larry the cat is a little troublemaker. None of us got a picture with the cat. Larry is the most miserable animal you ever meet in your life. It's not surprising given who he's had to live for the last 10 years. Mr. Murray said it was the most remarkable thing to be appointed to the government, and it's been a bit of a blur, but it's been a marvellous experience. The Scottish Secretary had another unsuccessful running with Sir Larry on July 16th, almost a fortnight after the election. He was pictured leaving 10 Downing Street trying and failing to stroke Larry with his hands left clutching air. Peter Gall, the Science Secretary, looked on amused. Larry's official account on X, formerly Twitter, reposted the photograph saying, "Nothing personal, Ian. Peter Kyle dared me." Mr. Murray, the Edinburgh South MP, responded, "I won't stop trying to pet you regardless of how much you play hard to get." I know it's not a serious one, guys. It's a bit of a funny one. But I saw this story and I thought I just wanted to share this one with you. But apparently Larry the cat is apparently a little shit, apparently. Who would have known? Who would have known that Sir Larry the cat was such a nuisance? But there you go, guys. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that story. I thought that was a really nice one, guys. Really, really nice one. So I've got one more story for you guys, and this one is from Byline Times. The last hour out of, we've covered 6, so we're going to hit our 7th one here, just as we head to the hour mark here on Regan's Newsround. It's a very interesting one, to say the least. So Byline Times reports that toxic culture remains at the scandal-hit TSSA union as strikes looms over alleged bullying. So the Labour-linked TSSA transport union faces an uncertainty future, says staff and activists, as a week-long strike by union employees is set to kick off. So, one thing, not all unions are perfect, hubbly-bubbly, and everything is all, everyone is all united in arms from the looks of it here. Now, some people may argue that Byline Times are making stuff up. but I don't think Byline Times are, as far as I'm aware, they are not somebody who I believe that posts information like this without some context behind this. And they said they have spoken to people within the union as well. So let's read a bit more into this before I give more of my thoughts to you guys. So, unions should, in theory, be modelled employers, and nearly all of them recognise other unions in order to represent their own staff, and they have a clear ethos to improve workers' lives and values rooted in dialogue between employees and bosses. Sometimes, though, the public image doesn't match the internal reality. Staff at one leading transport union have been undergoing strike action amid allegations of a toxic culture and a bullying attitude from the new union's general secretary, who was elected on reforming platforms following previous harassment scandals. The Labour-affiliated Transport Salary Staff Association, the TSSA, saw its previous General Secretary, Manuel Kurtz, dismissed for gross misconduct following a report by Helena Kennedy KC that revealed widespread bullying, sexual harassment and a problem of drinking culture and allegations of financial misconduct with the union. However, officials Byline Times has spoken to said the situation at the union has only gotten worse. None of the promised change has happened, and they've actually rolled back on implementing the Baroness Kennedy report, one official explains. The TSSA, which has around 18,000 members, represents many white-collar workers in transport, including HQ staff at most of their major train operators, Transport for London and HS2 employees. Marilyn Estemodo, a former Labour councillor in the London Borough of Camden, was elected as the TSSA's new General Secretary last September. She became the first woman of colour to head a national trade union in the UK. She has had little trade union experience, but was backed by the Executive Committee as an outsider who could get to grips with the scandal-hit union. Emmanuel Dusk was tasked with reforming the union and implementing recommendations from the Kennedy Airport. Activists and staff members hope for a fresh start. However, those Byline Times has spoken to said the situation has actually deteriorated under her leadership. It's appalling. She used bully boy tactics, one official claims. It's ruled by diktat. Byline Times has protected sources' identity so they could speak freely. A spokesperson for the union strongly denies claims of a bully boy culture under Emiros Deuce. However, earlier this year, TSA staff represented by the GMB union voted overwhelmingly 93% in favour of an 85% turnout for strike action, citing a culture of bullying, harassment and victimisation under her leadership. In April, they took strike action. In response, Emiros launched a public attack on the GMB union leadership, suggesting the strike was part of a plot to take over the TSSA. GMB's leadership branded it utter nonsense, and TSA told Byline Times it showed a lack of understanding of how unions work, adding, GMB leaders are not controlling the members who work for the TSSA. Another GMB member there added that the takeover claims were misinformation. This is very chaotic, I think is a good word to describe this. In an email to TSSA branches, Emil Dusk claimed that GMB had made it impossible to resolve any genuine issues that TSSA staff may have by refusing to say out any specific details of the matter they say are in dispute. In June, 15 further days of strike action were called over the dispute. Some senior figures, including the General Secretary and contractors, were accused of breaking the picket lines by continuing to go into the office. A union spokesperson strongly denied an allegation that a human resource figure said that we'll just starve out the striking staff. TSA employees, the vast majority of whom are understood to be GMB members, have been on a work to rule over the summer, meaning out of hours outside of 9 am to 5 pm. Work have largely stopped, causing headaches during this week's TUC gathering in Brighton. The dispute has now escalated again, with a full week of strikes set to take part on Monday, 16th of September. Dozens of TSA workers are estimated to take part, and in 2022, the unions had 47 staffers. Action from the General Secretary, which has sparked controversy this year, including laying off trainee organisers, union staff who have worked to boost membership in organised workers, and allegedly spending and demoting several employees who disagree with some of Emila Dusk's decisions. Staff at GMB's branch have reportedly passed an unanimous vote of no confidence in I can't say the name properly, guys. I do apologise. As well as the union's president, Melissa Haywood. The official conciliation body, the ACAS, was brought in to try and resolve the dispute, but the talks broke down with some staffers accusing management of refusing to budge on GMB's members' demands. Responding to Byline Times, a TSA spokesperson says TSA management is fully committed to resolving what is an internal dispute and ensuring that we can move forward together to securing a brighter future for our union and delivering effects for all members. We categorically refute any allegations of diktat or bullying approach in our handling of this matter. At no time language has been used as such of which you attribute to TSA HR, nor would it have been used or tolerated by anyone at TSSA. Our focus remains on fostering a respectful and collaborative environment for all our staff as we actively implement the recommendations from both Kennedy and Connolly reports. The Connolly report in February 2023 was an investigation commissioned by the union and run by Professor Hazel Connolly and Dr. Stefano Gaspari at the University of the West of England. It has made some of the same findings of the former senior leadership team, including the then General Secretary, as the later Kennedy report. It found that senior management culture described by the staff as members were interviewed as clinic and toxic, predicted on bullying, harassment and sexual harassment using fear, victimization and legal means to build a wall of silence. The behaviour of the senior management team is ultimately responsible for the executive committee. Interviewees felt the poor behaviour goes unchecked because of the executive committees is not sufficiently in control of the senior management team. But a TSA spokesperson said they take working to implement both reports' recommendations extremely seriously. Several official Byline Times spoke to her said this is not happening. So essentially, TSSA saying that they're working on these issues. Byline Times are saying that the people within it are saying that you're not doing anything. You're not doing nowhere near enough of what you could be doing about these harassments and the disputes that are taking place within the union. So it's pretty much a case of, do you believe what Byline Times are saying because they're claiming that their sources are saying that, or do you believe what TSA are saying here? As one official said, it's horrendous. Previously under interim Glenn Secretary Peter Peddle enjoyed being in office, and now no one is there. Everyone's scared. People coordinate coming in together because no one wants to be alone. You just can't go into work and do your job. You're scared and she'll twist whatever you say against you. It's your word against her. She has the power. The culture is completely worse than pre-Kennedy report. I've heard people saying that they'd rather return to the courts days. It's very sad. I don't think there's much future for the union. It's in the medium term. Others echoed the fear that without major change, including the executive committee, that being able to push back against the general secretary when needed, the union faces years of managing decline, as a source put it. The allegedly top-down setup looks more like a 19th century approach than one that works for the 21st century, they added. Baroness Kennedy, who conducted the bombshell report, which led to several senior management figures and the previous general secretary being ousted, was unavailable for comment. Baroness Kennedy reports suggest a new code of conduct for the general secretary, stating, the General Secretary must understand the importance and profile and their role as a figurehead and advocate, not just for the TCA, but for the union movement, and so commit to the best endeavours of exemplary conduct in both public and private life. The General Secretary must commit to seeking proactively and regularly feedback from diverse groups, staff members, volunteers and executive committee members on their role modelling of these values and their operations in this code of conduct. Despite stagnating membership for now, the union has several millions in reserve from the $6 million sale of its former Euston HQ to make way for a planned new HS2 station. After that point, the future is uncertain. A spokesperson for the Trade Union Congress declined to comment. The GMB union did not respond to requests for comments. They wanted to stay on there as well from this report, guys. Yeah, so she's not very popular, apparently. She's not very popular. It's not a very good image at all, I will say, for the TSSA transport union. That is for sure, guys. Now, while I don't know enough about this story, what I will say based on the report is, if what people within it are saying to Byline Times is true, then this definitely is a major problem for them, especially when they have, especially if they're affiliated with Labour as well, because there's not many unions, as far as I'm aware, there are not many unions affiliated with Labour now. Many of them are disconnected from them. And this is probably one of the bigger ones as well. So to see the disruption going on there, it's not very good at all. I do hope they get their house in check, and I do hope that there isn't. I really do hope that the stories about the bullying, the allegations of sexual misconduct, I hope they're being dealt with. I hope their concerns of what people are going through are being taken seriously, and that properly action is being dealt with. But if not, then they need to change their head. If the head is not getting a grip on this, then they need to go. And they just need everyone to work in tandem. And I think, yeah, if anyone who wants to take ideas from somebody who can manage a union more than anyone, it's Mick Lynch, a prime example of a man that clearly speaks for all the workers for him. Now, you can argue that their union may be a bit different from theirs, but it definitely should be taking ideas, yeah, from the way he's managing his, as well as other unions that don't have the issues that they are having. But in all seriousness, I do hope this toxic culture gets dealt with. In all seriousness, you guys. So, guys, what did you guys make of some of the stories we covered today? We've come to the end of Regan's Newsround. Let me know what you guys thought of some of the stories that we covered today. We covered quite a variety of topics, covering from England's national parks from The Guardian to assisting dying from Sky News, the coal mine plans being quashed by the BBC, to Rupert Murdoch meeting Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch in the Tory leadership contest, the exclusive from iNews, Labour's £22 billion black hole, and what was considered unnecessary and unhelpful from the Bank of England's chief economist from The Independent. Larry the cat being called a little shit from the Scottish secretary, which I think was extremely rude. And obviously we talked, as we did on the last one there, about toxic culture in the TSSA union. Let me know your thoughts and more on all these stories down in the comments section below. But just before you go, if you haven't already, please hit the like button, be greatly appreciated. Share this across social media so others are notified of this video, and subscribe if you haven't already, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.